Hello, and welcome to the Deep Dive. We're your shortcut to being truly well-informed. Today, we're plunging into a topic that, let's be honest, probably keeps a lot of us up at night sometimes. It stirs up this potent mix of, dreams and maybe a healthy dose of apprehension. We're talking about the journey, that fascinating, sometimes terrifying journey from the perceived security of a traditional 9 to 5 to actually charting your own unique course confidently. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. We're not just talking about like a career change here. It's bigger. It's this profound shift in how you engage with your life, really. Taking genuine control of your financial destiny, unearthing your deepest purpose, and then building something that is truly, authentically your own. And look, this isn't just about chasing more money. It's about pursuing optionality, freedom, and ultimately a much richer sense of fulfillment. I mean, who wouldn't want to explore that territory? So we're diving deep into Mohnish Pabrai's Guía Efectiva para Dejar tu Trabajo de 9 a 5 and 9 Messes. Now, that title alone, it sparks incredible curiosity, doesn't it? Because it offers this tangible timeline for such a huge, life-altering goal. We've all had those Monday mornings, right? Where you're just yearning for something different, to escape the relentless corporate grind, or maybe to finally pursue that passion project that feels tantalizingly just out of reach. But here's what makes Pabrai's philosophy so utterly captivating and, well, counterintuitive. It's his assertion that true entrepreneurship, far from being some reckless gamble, is actually about mastering the art of minimizing risk. That's a game changer for how we think about careers and our lives.
It really is. And what's fascinating here, especially from a financial psychology perspective, is how Mohnish Pabrai presents such a refreshingly grounded viewpoint, almost contrarian, you could say.
Yeah.
With over a decade delving into the psychology of money, I can tell you, many of our deeply ingrained beliefs about risk in business, they're, as Pabrai so boldly asserts, fundamentally flawed. He argues that the real secret, the key to sound financial psychology, lies in understanding how to systematically leverage these low-risk, high-reward scenarios. It's about stacking the deck in your favor, not by cheating, obviously, but by smart, disciplined thinking. So our mission in this deep dive is to meticulously extract the most important psychological principles and the practical strategies from Pabrai's work and other sources too. We want to empower you listening right now, not just with clarity, but with a powerful, actionable surge of motivation. We're not just going to list strategies, we're exploring a profound mindset shift, one that connects deeply with the emotional core of financial decision-making and really personal transformation. It's about getting to the heart of not just what to do, but why it truly matters for your well-being, your purpose. It's where mechanics meet the mind, and that's where the magic really happens.
Wow. Mastering the art of minimizing risk. Yeah, that really does flip conventional wisdom on its head. I mean, we often grow up with this idea, don't we? That a stable 9 to 5 is the safest path, the secure option. And that striking out on your own, starting a business, well, that's inherently terrifyingly risky. It's just conventional wisdom. It's ingrained in us. But what if that conventional wisdom is actually doing us a huge disservice to our potential and maybe more importantly, our happiness? What if, psychologically speaking, the very thing we think is safe is precisely what holds us back the most, trapping us in a cycle that might be far riskier than we ever imagined?
That's precisely the core challenge Pabrai puts forth. And it's a critical point for understanding the psychology of money and careers. We often fall into this deep psychological trap. Societal conditioning plus our innate human craving for comfort, for predictability. It makes us perceive that steady paycheck as inherently secure, rock solid. And this perception holds strong, even when that steady income is actively stifling our personal growth, or dulling our passions, or just preventing us from tapping into our true potential. We crave that predictable income because, well, it gives us a sense of stability. Seems like solid ground, right? Even if it means sacrificing our deepest aspirations, that spark of creativity inside us. Pabrai provocatively asserts that a 9 to 5 job is, in a very profound sense, more risky. Why? Because it prevents you from getting your music out. Think about it. Our single precious life is finite. It's limited. And not pursuing what's truly in your heart, not giving voice to what you feel called to do, that's the ultimate risk. The existential one, the real danger isn't trying and maybe failing. It's looking back and realizing you never truly tried at all. It's a powerful and, often uncomfortable truth to face. He shares this very telling anecdote about his own father. His father, despite having gone through significant entrepreneurial turbulence himself, actually encouraged Pabrai to quit a secure software engineering job at 25. Now, Pabrai quite naturally had fears about the turbulence and gyrations he'd seen his father go through. But his father, with this profound wisdom, just dismissed those fears. He said, "That is what makes life fun. It's part of the great experience of living." That simple statement highlights a deep truth we often overlook when we're chasing financial security. The rewards of entrepreneurship aren't just financial, they're deeply emotional, experientially rich. It's about the vividness of living a life fully engaged, where every challenge is part of this grander adventure. It's about trading that predictable comfort for an unpredictable, but maybe ultimately more fulfilling journey. And this naturally leads us to the critical concept of finding your calling, or as Pabrai puts it, your music. That unique passion or skill or contribution that the world genuinely needs, and that just lights you up from within. This isn't just about being vaguely dissatisfied with your current work, it's about having a deeper intrinsic purpose pulling you forward. Pabrai himself, actually guided by industrial psychologists, discovered his own calling was playing games, specifically numbers and math games, a very logical inclination. And then he brilliantly integrated this natural aptitude into his entrepreneurial ventures successfully. So this shows, right, that a calling isn't always artistic or, traditionally creative. It can be about leveraging your innate abilities, what truly excites your intellect, and then transforming that into something valuable, something tangible, connecting passion with a practical, scalable application. That's a powerful psychological recipe for sustained success and deep satisfaction.
So what does this all boil down to for you, the listener? It means taking a deliberate pause, a moment for really honest self-reflection on your own internal state. Are you genuinely excited to get up in the morning? As Pabrai famously quips, are you ready to tap dance to work? If that feeling is missing, if you're not eagerly anticipating the day's challenges, then Pabrai suggests something might be fundamentally misaligned. It's about cultivating that deep self-awareness, honestly assessing if your current path truly aligns with your deepest aspirations, your music. Pulsing? If you're not actively pursuing your calling, well, this introspective step is the very first and maybe the most challenging psychological hurdle. It's where it all begins.
Absolutely crucial, that self-awareness, because there's this widely acknowledged truth in entrepreneurial circles. Success in entrepreneurship is 80% psychology and 20% mechanics. And that's not just a catchy phrase. It's a fundamental psychological principle. The technical stuff, the detailed business plan, the perfect product, the market analysis, yeah, they're important, no doubt. But they account for a surprisingly small fraction of what ultimately determines success. The overwhelming majority, a staggering 80%, is your mindset, your mental fortitude, your emotional intelligence. This means you need to cultivate core psychological traits like resilience, that critical ability to bounce back from setbacks, not just intellectual, but emotionally. Adaptability, because the business landscape is always shifting, right? And a profound growth mindset, that unwavering belief that your abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. These aren't just buzzwords. They are the essential mental muscles you need to navigate the inevitable challenges, the unexpected detours, and the profound uncertainties that come with forging your own path. Without that robust psychological foundation, even the most brilliant mechanics probably won't get you very far.
That 80-20 rule really hits home. It highlights the biggest battle is often the one inside ourselves. Okay, so if the 9-to-5 isn't the safe bet we thought, and if psychology is such a dominant force, what are the actual mechanics, the strategies that Mohnish Pabrai and other Danto investors use? How to translate this mindset into concrete actions to dramatically minimize risk while maximizing the upside? It sounds like it starts with a really fascinating definition, one that kind of flips conventional thinking on its head.
Absolutely. The very essence of Pabrai's philosophy is wrapped up in this Gujarati word, Danto. Now, directly translated, Danto means something like endeavors that create wealth. But Pabrai refines it to something much more potent, making risk-free bets with massive upside. His personal mantra really captures the spirit. Heads I win, tails I don't lose much. Now, this isn't about avoiding all risk. That's impossible in any venture. Instead, it's about meticulously structuring ventures where the potential loss is truly minimal, negligible almost, but the potential gain exponential. It's like setting up an almost unfair advantage. And a powerful practical insight from Pabrai's early career illustrates the psychological safety net really well. He didn't just, casually consider the worst case scenario. He thoroughly researched bankruptcy law. This deep dive into the legal side of failure gave him this profound psychological understanding that his personal downside risk, if his business failed, was actually minimal. Knowing that was incredibly liberating. It allowed him to take decisive action without that paralyzing fear that so often cripples aspiring entrepreneurs. Just understanding what's the absolute worst that can happen and can I live with it? That can be an incredibly powerful psychological tool for just getting started. This Dando approach also brilliantly tackles one of the biggest psychological hurdles for entrepreneurs. That immense pressure to invent something totally new, to be a groundbreaking visionary right out of the gate. So many people feel this overwhelming need for a revolutionary, never-before-seen idea. But Pabrai radically reframes this. He emphasizes cloning as a truly strategic advantage, a shortcut to proven success. He points out how some of the world's most successful businesses and entrepreneurs were actually expert cloners. Take Microsoft. They didn't invent the word processor. They cloned WordPerfect for Word. They didn't invent the spreadsheet. They cloned Lotus for Excel. They even cloned Google for Bing, right? Or Sam Walton, founder of Walmart. He openly admitted he had no original ideas. His genius was in his relentless study of competitors like Sears and Kmart. He'd literally visit their stores, watch everything, their operations, pricing, customer service, and then meticulously adopt their best practices, often improving them. He believed in learning from anyone, good or bad. Howard Schultz and Starbucks. He didn't invent the coffee shop. He famously cloned the Italian cafe experience, recognizing its proven success, and then masterfully brought that existing model to a new market in the U.S. This shifting perspective, it dramatically reduces that huge psychological burden of coming up with something new. It frees you up to focus on execution, on continuous improvement, finding a better way to deliver something that already works, rather than that often paralyzing, ego-driven quest for absolute originality. It's about building a better mousetrap, maybe not inventing the mouse itself. And beyond cloning, Pabrai relentlessly emphasizes investing in businesses that are both understandable and simple, delightfully simple even, and they need to possess what he calls durable competitive advantages, often called moats. He's passionate about avoiding complex, opaque business models that just obscure risks. Because quite simply, the simpler the business, the easier it is to really understand its cash flows, its operations, and make sound, rational decisions. So the Danto method often involves investing in established, proven businesses rather than creating new ones from scratch. That naturally reduces startup risks. A really compelling real-world example of these principles in action, it's an inspiring story of grit and strategic simplicity, is the phenomenon of the Patels and their incredible dominance of the motel industry.
Ah, yes, the Patels. Here's where it gets really interesting, because their story isn't just about financial smarts or a clever business plan. It's this profound testament to incredible psychological resilience, intergenerational discipline, and this collective commitment to one single vision. It's truly amazing.
It really is. It's a masterclass in Danto principles and financial psychology. So the Patels, this community of Gujarati Indians, were tragically displaced from Uganda in the 70s. They arrived in the U.S. with incredibly limited assets, often just the clothes on their backs. Their strategy, born from necessity but also shrewd observation, was remarkably Danho-esque. They focused on buying small, low-end motels, often run-down places others overlooked. Psychologically, this immediately provided a critical safety net, free housing for the whole family. They'd live right there, in a couple of rooms. It also meant immediate employment for the entire family unit. Papa Patel would literally be the concierge, the carpenter, the plumber, doing whatever needed to be done. By self-managing everything, cutting unnecessary costs, adopting a simple lifestyle, they systematically became the lowest-cost operators in the market. This fierce cost leadership let them consistently underprice competitors, which meant more customers, higher occupancy, and crucially, higher profits. And then they diligently, almost religiously, reinvested those profits to buy more motels. Expanding their footprint, the result is just astounding. From being a tiny fraction of the U.S. population, Patels now own something like 70–80% of all motels in the U.S. Their success wasn't just financial skill. It was this deep psychological resilience, an unwavering work ethic, and that generational discipline. To maintain a focused, low-cost operation, it proves the immense power of simplicity, patience, and persistence in building wealth. And another example, illustrating this idea of offering gaps and building a durable moat, is the story of a savvy barber. Imagine a busy town, Town A, lots of barbershops. Nearby, Town B also has plenty. But then a brand new township, Town C, starts growing rapidly, new residents moving in. But for some reason, no barbershops, a clear offering gap. A smart barber from Town A sees this opportunity. His entry strategy is beautifully low risk. He rents a small storefront in Town C, buys used equipment to keep costs low, and crucially, he only operates there 1 day a week initially, keeping a stable income from his main shop in Town A. And here's where the thin herd principle really clicks. He charges a premium, say $45 compared to $30 back home. Why? Because he's saving Town C customers significant time, travel, the hassle of driving elsewhere. And here's the moat, the durable competitive advantage. Humans are creatures of habit, right? Especially personal stuff like a barber. Competent, consistent service quickly builds trust and loyalty. That creates this durable competitive advantage that makes it really hard for a new competitor to just waltz in and steal his customers. So this raises an important question for you listening. How can you spot these seemingly obvious offering gaps in your own market or community? Where can you provide unique, essential value with minimal initial risk? It often comes down to keen observation, empathy for unmet needs, and the courage to take that first small, de-risked step. Another absolutely crucial element in the Danto philosophy, and one that resonates deeply with the psychology of building a successful venture, is the relentless, almost obsessive focus on recruiting only A players and maintaining unwavering integrity. Pabrai is famously blunt about this. He states unequivocally, B players hire C players, and that's how quality spirals down. So the Danto approach emphasizes recruiting only A players. Those individuals who are truly exceptional, maybe even better than you in their specific area. Pabrai himself looks for 3 non-negotiable traits: sharp intelligence, absolute integrity, and a fierce willingness to work hard. And integrity defined as absolute honesty and the highest levels of ethical standards. That's paramount. This isn't just about, business ethics. It's fundamentally about psychological stability. Building deep trust within your team and, critically, with your customers. From a psychology of money perspective, surrounding yourself with truly exceptional talent, even people clearly better than you in certain areas, it cultivates this environment of high performance, mutual respect, collaborative innovation. Psychologically, it reduces your anxiety because you trust your team, and it significantly boosts the collective problem-solving capacity of your whole enterprise. Practically, using pre-employment testing, sophisticated tools from companies like Caliper or Culturist.com can be invaluable. These tools use psychometric assessments to evaluate innate traits, cognitive aptitude, emotional intelligence, core work values. This is key because, as Pabrai shrewdly notes, many human traits are largely hard-coded by age 5. They don't change much. So this allows for a more objective, data-driven hiring process, beyond just subjective interview feelings. And when it comes to managing that team, the counterintuitive advice, but often profoundly effective, is fire fast. Now, this isn't about being ruthless. It's often a genuine service to the individual, letting them quickly find a better fit elsewhere. And it's definitely a service to the rest of the team, preserving morale, productivity, and the overall healthy culture by quickly addressing underperformance or a fundamental mismatch. It's a tough call, sure, but a psychologically sound one for the health of the whole venture.
That's a really powerful and unsentimental approach to team building. It truly underscores how much of entrepreneurship is about managing people and your own mindset. Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Let's move from these broader principles to the very practical, actionable steps for actually transitioning from a 9 to 5. Because, it's one thing to understand the philosophy. It's another entirely to put it into deliberate, effective action.
Indeed. And the absolute first practical step from a solid psychological standpoint is what we call the dual track. Keep your day job while you meticulously build your dream. The advice here is clear, almost a mantra. Don't shut off the cash flow. Your current job, the one you might be dreaming of leaving, it pays your bills. And this provides an absolutely vital psychological buffer. The romanticized idea of quitting cold turkey, the heroic entrepreneurial leap. It's often presented that way, but it is inherently riskier. It can lead to immense debilitating stress, which is profoundly detrimental to creative problem-solving and sound decision-making. Having that stable, predictable income removes the immediate, crushing financial pressure. It allows you to focus your cognitive energy on thoughtfully building your new venture without that primal fear of destitution constantly hanging over you. It's a strategic de-risking of your personal finances, giving you the mental space you need to innovate. Now, this dual-track strategy, it requires a radical, almost ruthless reallocation of your time. Pabrai illustrates this beautifully with this powerful visual analogy. Your week divided into Lego blocks of time. You've got sleep, your 9 to 5 work, other essential responsibilities, and then your free time. He shares his own intense experience, working on his startup from 7 to 9 a.m. before his day job, then again from 6 p.m. midnight on weekdays, plus dedicating long, focused hours on weekends, all while still employed full-time. The key psychological shift here is profound. Your startup work must be demonstrably more exciting than your free time. If building your business isn't more compelling, more engaging, more intrinsically rewarding than watching Netflix or scrolling social media, that's a clear, unvarnished sign to reevaluate your passion and your commitment. You need that deep, intrinsic motivation for your yellow time, your startup work, to naturally, almost effortlessly, displace your orange time, your leisure. And a practical tip, often overlooked, to create more of this invaluable yellow time. Aggressively minimize your commute time as much as humanly possible. Every hour, every single minute matters when you're building something significant from the ground up. Okay, next we move to a truly critical phase, rigorously validating your idea. And crucially, developing an almost obsessive habit of listening to your customers. Pabrai has this wonderfully blunt yet profoundly insightful take on a common entrepreneurial pitfall. He says, whatever idea you have come up with is not going to work because you came up with it in an ivory tower between your ears. Ouch.
Ow.
But it points to a significant psychological hurdle for many, that deep, often ego-driven attachment to our own brilliant ideas. It leads to confirmation bias, the robust solution, rapid prototyping, which basically means getting your idea out of your head and into the hands of real humans as quickly as possible. To gather their unfiltered, honest feedback, Pabrai shares a classic anecdote from his early days starting his IT business. He meticulously prepared this elaborate, impressive 20-slide deck to pitch his services to a big bank. But during the meeting, the senior IT manager largely ignored his carefully crafted presentation. He kept asking Pabrai to go back to just one specific slide, slide 10. That slide, it turned out, addressed an extreme pain point for the client, a problem they desperately needed solved. That direct, immediate, unsolicited feedback was absolutely invaluable. And it became the unexpected foundation of his hugely successful business. He actually walked out of that meeting with a purchase order. This story powerfully highlights the critical importance of listening intently, almost forensically, to the customer's pain point in any context. It reminds me of an interview story I heard recently. A candidate for a critical event planning role, 20 years experience, spent 55 minutes talking generally about her background, but the interviewer just needed to know one thing. Could she handle large-scale events with complex logistics? She never asked what the specific need was, never demonstrated her fit for that problem, and she lost out, despite her experience. It just perfectly shows the danger of not listening, not addressing the core problem your customer or interviewer needs solved. So to validate an idea in a truly de-risk way, you can take several practical steps. This includes thorough market research, analyzing competitors, what works, what doesn't, creating an MVP, a minimum viable product, to get something tangible in front of users quickly, gathering customer feedback through surveys, interviews, running small-scale tests, but the ultimate psychological and market validation. That comes from pre-sales. As one expert put it succinctly, if people are willing to pay before you've even launched, you know you're onto something. It provides irrefutable proof of genuine demand, and it drastically reduces the financial and psychological risk of building something nobody actually wants or needs. Now, overcoming rejection, that's a major psychological challenge for almost every aspiring entrepreneur. So many get demotivated faced. They think, I sent 6 emails, nobody replied, this isn't working. Right. But Pabrai's experience highlights the unsung hero, persistence, and the immutable law of averages. He describes this methodical, almost clinical sales funnel approach he used, sending 200 personalized letters weekly to senior IT folks, then diligently following up with 200 phone calls, meticulously tracking every single response. As he puts it, with a bit of a chuckle, Dave never leaves that funnel until he definitively says no. Unequivocally, this isn't about brute force. It's about systematic, persistent engagement, understanding your conversion rates, and realizing that a no today might just be a yes tomorrow or the day after. It really boils down to taking more swings, just like in sports, right? You miss every shot you don't take. Confidence isn't built by just hoping for a yes. It's built through consistent, purposeful action and collecting data, even if that data includes a lot of no's. I heard this great story once about someone who had a casual chat in a queue at age 14. Just a polite conversation. Years later, that single interaction led to a multi-million-dollar investment opportunity that compounded into significant wealth. It just illustrates how every interaction, every swing, every seed planted has the potential to compound into something significant later on. And this approach aligns beautifully with Adam Grant's framework of givers, takers, and matchers. Givers, those who generously help others without expecting an immediate return, they're ultimately the most successful. It's like the universe conspires to help them. It creates this powerful psychological framework for networking, building long-term goodwill. That goodwill compounds exponentially over time. It's like a trust account you keep depositing into, and it pays dividends you can't always predict. Which brings us neatly to the actual mechanics of the 9-month transition plan, and that powerful free shot mentality. Pabrai deliberately, almost scientifically, scaled back his 9-to-5 performance to just above firing level, as he says, for a full 9 months. He redirected that vital energy, that precious cognitive bandwidth, all his available time, to his startup, until it generated enough consistent cash flow to fully sustain him. This wasn't slacking off. It was strategic reallocation of his most valuable resources. But the truly fascinating and crucial part of his story is the free shot he engineered. When he finally gave notice, his employer, understandably confused by his performance drop but unable to fire him because of his past record, actually offered him his job back with a promotion if his new venture failed. Now that highlights the minimal personal downside he had meticulously built into his plan. A truly critical psychological reassurance that let him leap with confidence.
That's incredible. A safety net he basically built himself. Which, raises an important question for all of us listening. If these giants of industry, the visionaries we look up to, could find these incredibly creative ways to de-risk their biggest, most audacious leaps, what free shots or ingenious solutions can you identify and maybe engineer in your own journey?
Exactly. I mean, look at historical examples. Bill Gates, right? As a Harvard freshman, he had minimal job market value in the conventional sense. If Microsoft had, for some reason, failed spectacularly back then, he could have just gone back to finish his degree. His risk, psychologically and practically, was close to zero. Or think about Richard Branson starting Virgin Atlantic. He needed a staggering $150 million jumbo jet with, by his own admission, zero capital. So what did he do? He creatively negotiated a lease from Boeing for an unused 747. He funded it by pre-selling tickets. And he structured payments for fuel and the lease after the flights actually happened. That allowed him to get off the ground with virtually no upfront capital and almost zero risk of personal financial ruin. These examples are powerful psychological lessons. Creativity, strategic thinking, a willingness to negotiate. They can effectively replace massive amounts of capital. They can dramatically reduce perceived risk, giving you that almost unbelievable free shot to pursue your most ambitious dreams. It's about being audacious, yes, but also incredibly clever.
Absolutely. And the courage to take that free shot is often really bolstered by solid preparation, isn't it? So now that we've talked about the initial leap, the psychology behind it, let's talk about the absolutely essential financial elements, the things that support any entrepreneurial or freedom-seeking endeavor. Because while passion and strategy are vital, having that solid, unshakable financial foundation, that's truly the bedrock that lets you weather any storm.
That's exactly right. And the first, arguably most critical piece of that bedrock is diligently establishing your financial runway, starting with a robust emergency fund. Now, this isn't just dry practical advice. It's a critical component for your psychological comfort, your resilience. Aim for at least 6 months of essential living expenses, meticulously saved in a high-yield savings account. Sure, some aggressive sources might suggest 1 to 4 years for a startup, but 6 months provides a solid, achievable starting point, and it offers immense peace of mind. Knowing you have that buffer significantly reduces financial anxiety. It allows you to take calculated risks and make rational business decisions without panicking or succumbing to desperation, which is a common psychological pitfall when finances get tight. And beyond the emergency fund, it's incredibly helpful, just from a psychological framing perspective, to view your financial journey through what I sometimes call the career compounding hack. It outlines 3 distinct stages. First, you earn money with your time. That's your traditional job, trading hours for dollars. Second, you graduate to earning money with your brain. That's your entrepreneurial ventures, leveraging your unique skills, insights, problem-solving abilities. And third, the ultimate stage, you earn money with your money. That's the power of investing and compounding. This psychological framing helps you see your financial journey not as static, but as this progressive, empowering path. It actively encourages you to move towards greater leverage, more optionality, and ultimately true financial freedom, which naturally leads us to the almost magical, often underestimated power of compounding, investing for the long term. It's truly astonishing how powerful starting early and staying remarkably consistent can be. Investing diligently in your 20s is exponentially more impactful. Why? Because of the sheer relentless power of time and that nonlinear growth compounding provides. Small, consistent contributions early in life can yield absolutely massive results over decades. Now, many of you might know the rule of 72, that quick mental math hack to estimate how long it takes money to double. But the psychological challenge is truly internalizing its nonlinear power. Our brains are just inherently wired for linear thinking, which is precisely why we so often underestimate the truly transformative long-term impact of consistent early investing. The Manhattan story, it's a classic in financial education, powerfully illustrates this nonlinear growth our brains struggle with. Imagine if the Native American Indians, who famously sold Manhattan for about $23 back in 1623, had, instead of spending it, invested that money at a modest 7% annual return. By 2023, that humble $23 would have grown to an absolutely astonishing $23 trillion, a sum that would dwarf the actual value of owning the land itself by many, many orders of magnitude. It dramatically illustrates they weren't really taken in the traditional sense. They simply lacked a good trust officer, someone to facilitate long-term compounding, and maybe the psychological framework to grasp its immense power. It's a vivid reminder of what our linear brains miss. So for beginners, simple, low-stress investing strategies are key. The fundamental, unshakable principle, of course, is consistently spend less than you earn. Got to do that first. Then, for the investment itself, I almost always advise investing in broad market index funds, like the S&P 500, or even just buying shares in Berkshire Hathaway, for a truly set it and forget it approach. It requires minimal research, minimal active management, and significantly reduces psychological stress. It's rarely truly passive in its initial setup or ongoing maintenance. Managing expectations around this is crucial for your psychological well-being, but the benefits are substantial. Increased wealth accumulation, the genuine potential for early retirement, and crucial psychological protection against a complete loss of income if you unexpectedly lose your main job. The possibilities are vast, but let's look at a couple through that Donho lens. First, real estate. Beyond traditional rentals, think smaller, more accessible free shots. Renting out spare rooms on Airbnb. Sure, it can generate income, but be aware of the psychological hurdles. Managing guests, cleaning, maintenance, needing proper insurance. A lower hassle, maybe more kind of host-style approach. Storing other people's stuff. In your basement, garage, spare closet. Through platforms like Neighbor or iStoreit, you're leveraging existing unused assets with minimal active management. Or renting out useful, underutilized items you already own. Think trailers, kayaks, maybe even your yard or pool for events. Sports gear via Spin Lister. These are micro-entrepreneurial ventures, often minimal new capital needed. Just creative thinking, leveraging existing resources, low risk, potentially high reward. Second, consider digital products and content creation. These often leverage your brain and skills. Starting a blog or YouTube channel, significant upfront time investment, sure, but the content can generate income for years. Writing an ebook via Kindle Direct Publishing, creating online courses on Udemy. You package your knowledge into a scalable product. The psychological challenge here is consistency, dealing with imposter syndrome, enduring maybe initial low returns. But once established, these can become powerful, relatively passive income generators. You could also sell stock photos or music on sites like Fope, design custom products for print-on-demand platforms like Redbubble, Spring, Zazzle. These let you monetize creativity without holding inventory. Again, a lower risk approach. And it's critically important to just briefly touch on tax considerations here. Most forms of passive income, like renting a room, selling t-shirts, will typically be taxed as ordinary income. However, profits from certain investments, like low turnover mutual funds or REITs real estate investment trusts, companies owning income-producing real estate, those are usually taxed as capital gains. Rates depend on how long you held them. Taxes can get complicated fast. So always consult a qualified tax professional. The psychological peace of mind from knowing you're compliant and optimized, that's invaluable.
Okay, so what does all this mean for you listening right now? It means taking a realistic, honest look at these options, evaluating them based on your unique skills, the time you can genuinely commit, your initial investment capacity. The goal isn't necessarily to replace your entire income overnight. That's often an unrealistic expectation. Leads to burnout. Instead, it's about strategically building supplementary income streams during your yellow time, incrementally fueling your journey towards greater financial freedom, more choices in your life. It's about being deliberate and patient. Right. So we've discussed the initial leap into entrepreneurship, the essential financial foundations to support it. Let's shift focus now to what happens after that jump. Because sustaining growth, maintaining momentum, cultivating a long-term vision, that's just as critical as the courage it took to start, isn't it? The journey doesn't end when you leave the 9-to-5. In many ways, that's just the beginning of the real work.
Absolutely. And one of the biggest psychological traps entrepreneurs fall into is that dreaded shiny object syndrome. That irresistible temptation to abandon a promising path when things get tough, constantly chasing the next shiny idea or perceived shortcut. Pabrai uses this simple yet profoundly powerful analogy to counter this. He says, if you stand at a bus stop, eventually you'll catch a bus. But if you run from bus stop to bus stop, you may never catch a bus. Consistency. That unglamorous virtue, it compounds far more effectively than constant impulsive pivoting. Now, this isn't saying never change direction, but changes should be driven by clear, undeniable data screaming at you. Not just mere impatience or frustration or the allure of something new. Iteration making small, data-driven improvements, that's the wise cousin of consistency. Within that consistency, though, there's this powerful principle of continuous, disciplined innovation, brilliantly exemplified by IKEA's model. Ingvar Kamprad, IKEA's founder, built the company on a rock-solid financial foundation, famously no debt, but he also instilled this unique mandate: no two IKEA stores can be the same. Now, this wasn't about radical reinvention every time. It was a commitment that each new store must incorporate at least one measurable innovation. One experiment. This fosters a culture where innovation isn't sporadic, it's integral, expected, measurable, part of ongoing operations. It prevents stagnation while steadfastly maintaining core principles. And the psychological benefit, it keeps teams engaged, proactive, always looking for efficiencies or improvements, not just resting on their laurels.
That's fascinating. Baking innovation right into the process of a huge enterprise like that. So what does this mean for you? How can you apply this one experiment per project mindset? This commitment to continuous, measurable improvement in your own work or your burgeoning business, even if it's still just a side hustle. It's about finding those small, consistent ways to push boundaries without disrupting your core mission.
Exactly. And this ties into another crucial principle for long-term success, making fewer, big, infrequent bets. Warren Buffett's famous punch card analogy illustrates this perfectly. He says you only get 20 investment punches in a lifetime. That forces extreme thoughtfulness, deep research, unwavering conviction before each decision. The stark reality, as he points out, is that something like 4% of listed companies generate a staggering 90% of stock market returns. This insight psychologically discourages scattered efforts or speculative day trading, which often leads to poor, emotionally driven outcomes for individuals. Instead, it advocates for deep conviction in a few high-potential opportunities, recognizing that true wealth is built through patience, discipline, and an intense focus on quality, not quantity or frenetic activity. It's about having the psychological fortitude to wait for the fat pitch, as they say in baseball. And another powerful concept for sustaining growth and, crucially, protecting your gains is what Pabrai calls circling the wagons. The term evokes that image, right? 19th century pioneers moving west. One threatened they'd form a defensive circle with their wagons to protect their most valuable assets. In investing in entrepreneurship, it means identifying your truly exceptional investments or projects, your multi-baggers. Those companies or initiatives with the genuine potential to grow 10, 50, even 100 times their initial value, and then holding them for the incredibly long term, resisting that almost irresistible urge to sell prematurely. Warren Buffett himself famously noted, out of literally hundreds of investments over 50 years, only about 12 truly moved the needle for Berkshire Hathaway. The key, he stressed, was never selling them. He circled those wagons with unwavering discipline. Pabrai shares this deeply personal example, a mistake of omission, that drives this point home with painful clarity. He invested in Fiat Chrysler automobiles, which notably included an 80% stake in the iconic Ferrari brand. He made a good return on his investment, sure, but he sold before Ferrari was spun off as its own independent public company. Had he simply held on, that single decision would have meant billions in additional profit. Billions. The psychological lesson here is profound. The biggest mistakes in investing in business aren't always the spectacular failures, the ones that go to zero. Often, they are the ones that got away, due to a lack of patience, a failure of conviction, or simply not recognizing the long-term potential of what turned out to be a true crown jewel. It's about recognizing greatness when you see it and then having the psychological discipline to hold on. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this raises an important question for each of you listening. How do you learn to truly recognize these crown jewels, these truly exceptional opportunities, relationships, projects in your own life and business? And maybe more importantly, how do you develop the psychological discipline, that unwavering fortitude to protect them, to let them compound over decades? It's about understanding that the biggest wins often come from holding on to what's truly great, letting time and competitive advantages do their magnificent, often underestimated work.
Wow. We've really journeyed through a remarkable landscape today, haven't we? Diving deep into the psychological underpinnings of financial freedom, exploring Mohnish Pabrai's incredible condo philosophy, and mapping out practical, actionable steps for your entrepreneurial transition. We've seen how reframing conventional risk, embracing the strategic advantage of cloning, listening intently, almost forensically to customer pain points, and committing to unwavering consistency can fundamentally change everything. We've talked about the immense power of starting small, that almost magical, non-linear effect of compounding your money and your efforts, and the wealth-building potential of diversifying through passive income streams you can build during your yellow time.
And if we connect this all to the bigger picture, the ultimate takeaway isn't just about spreadsheets or financial metrics, is it? It's about aligning your daily effort, your precious time, with your deepest sense of purpose and fulfillment. It's about finding your unique music, that passion or contribution only you can offer, and then having both the courage and the strategic roadmap to actually share it with the world. Through simple, consistent steps by mastering the psychology of money, it truly is possible to take profound control of your personal finances and career path, offering yourself more optionality, more freedom, and ultimately a more fulfilling life than you might have ever thought possible. It really comes down to understanding how our beliefs, our ingrained fears, our daily habits, how they drive our financial decisions, and then deliberately, consciously shaping those to serve our long-term goals and our deepest aspirations.
So as you go about your day, I want to leave you with a provocative thought to mull over. What music are you holding back from the world right now? Maybe because of perceived risk or a lingering fear. And what small, low-risk, Dundo-inspired step can you commit to taking today to start getting that music out there? We truly hope this deep dive leaves you with profound clarity, renewed motivation, and the unwavering certainty that financial psychology offers practical, accessible solutions for everyone. Share your thoughts with us, tell us what small step you're taking, and hey, don't forget to share this deep dive with anyone else who needs to hear this empowering message. Until next time, keep diving deep.